you ever tried to make a project from a pattern and found that things really just didn't work out? Well, of course that's happened to you if you've done any amount of woodworking. It certainly happened to me. And if you've been following my blog, you know that I've been exploring some of the reasons why these things happen. Problems that we create for ourselves and problems that are out of our control, such as a pattern that assumes too much, things known only to the person writing the pattern, or errors that appear on the pattern, where the 1/4 inch becomes a 1/2 inch and messes up all of your plans. There is, however, one remaining source of problems that I decided was best covered by a video, since it would be hard to explain in words. And that has to do with the actual patterns themselves. When a publisher decides to publish a book, the publisher decides on a price point how much they want to sell the book for, and that limits the number of pages. So that, for example, in the case of my book, several projects, fortunately not main ones, were cut from the book so that we would have the required number of pages. Now, text is not as much of a problem as patterns. Patterns are space hogs, and that's why you seldom see patterns printed out at 100%. You usually see instructions to enlarge them 110%, 120%, 150%, so you can get more on the page. Since most people these days have scanners, it's not a major problem. You don't have to go rushing down to a copy center and pay a premium price to get a custom enlargement. But sometimes, in the interest of saving space, a pattern is asked to do double duty, as when you're required to make 2 or even 3 copies of a particular pattern. Now, in my book, in chapter 6, the chapter that deals with vases and jars, projects that require more than 1 set of rings, sometimes 2 or even 3 set of rings, the patterns do double duty, and that's where the confusion comes in. The pattern that I'm going to use as an example, because I've gotten several inquiries and that prompted my decision to make a video about it, has to do with the last project in the book, the vase with the ruffled top, which has a center ring in between the top set of rings and the bottom set of rings. Now, in this pattern, which I've enlarged for clarity, it's identified as rippled edge vase pattern, center ring, and set 2. Copy at 110%, make 2 copies. The part that was confusing is that there are 2 entry holes. And the reason for that is that one of the rings, ring set 2, is done conventionally, where you use your angle gauge, you drill your hole at an angle on the cutting line, and you use both the ring and whatever the remainder is. And that says entry hole for ring set 2. Now, entry hole for center ring is sort of floating out in space. And here's the confusion. Seen by itself, it's really quite conventional. We cut out the center ring here with a straight cut, which is in the instructions. And the entry hole is not drilled on the ring, because then you would have to sand it away. There's no need, since the center is either discarded or the bulk of it is used for another part of the project, and that also is spelled out. There's no need to cut it that close. In the next printing of my book, I've asked that they move the entry hole a little closer to match with convention. Actually, you could put it any place, but that would be thoroughly confusing. So, in answer to those of you who are wondering how you treat these kind of patterns, and there are several like this, the answer is, for the single ring, where you make a straight entry hole and cut with the saw table level, you drill your hole in the usual fashion, right close to the cutting line. You insert the blade in the hole, and then you just cut over to the cutting line and then just cut around. And that center piece will either be saved or use elsewhere, or if it happens to be something that you glued up, a lamination, then you can save it and use it for a completely different project. All right, I hope that this clarifies things, and I apologize for the confusion, but it was something that was unavoidable. Thanks for watching the video. Hope this has helped.